Shalom, shalom, shalom. I want to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahak, Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Peace, blessing, and salutations to the hopeful elect scattered abroad, teaching His word in truth and in sincerity. I'm back with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. And I'm going to go into Yahushai and how His name was changed through transliteration, false transliteration. His name became Jesus Christ, and how Jesus Christ, who we see today as Jesus Christ, is really Caesar Borgia, which is an Italian man in the time of the Renaissance period, right? So just going over the image, right? Because the image is important. Scripture say, if you believe on me, as the scripture have said, this is Yahweh speaking, out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. So you have to actually believe in the scriptures and everything in the scriptures. Like a lot of people say they believe in the scriptures, but when you bring up a so-called black Messiah, all of a sudden it's not about color, it's not about race, this is that and the third, you know. But they didn't say nothing when the white man was portrayed as Jesus, or portrayed as Jesus, which is truly Yahweh Shai. So now that we highlight that Jesus was black, or Yahweh Shai, who they call Jesus, ignorantly call Jesus as black, it doesn't matter about race. So let's go into a little history of the Borgias, right? Caesar Borgia. And this is like a off the internet. So it's a Caesar Borgia, and then they have an image of Caesar Borgia, and then they have an image of who they call Jesus Christ. Caesar Borgia is in the book entitled Triptycha. It's like, I don't know how to say that. Triptych of Poisoners, and is also the book entitled Caesar Borgia, His Life and the Times by Sarah Bradford. Between 1502 and 1503, he employed Leonardo da Vinci as a military architect and engineer, in which him and Leonardo da Vinci became intimate instantly. They were lovers, right? So the person you're looking at as Jesus Christ, who is truly Yahweh Shai, his true name, they made him into a man, or they changed the image of a so-called black man to an image of a man who was in a homosexual relationship with Leonardo da Vinci. This is important information, and this is like milk, right? Once we understand we're Israelites, we understand that the Lord came and died for us, we're going to understand that the Israelites were so-called black, Hispanic, and Native Americans. Yahushua was from the tribe of Judah. He was a so-called black man. He looked like a black man in America. Once you know these things, then you have to figure out, okay, so who is this white man that we see, right? Who is he? And go into history and figure out all these things so we can have better information, you know? Because it does matter his color, because his color is tied to his people. And we're not saying every one of his people look like a so-called black man, right? As I previously stated, so-called black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, they're all Israelites. The Native Americans, the indigenous people of Central or South America, right? Central America, North America. Were they more darker back in the day? I guarantee they were. They probably had more darker pigments. But we look at the seed of the father as the determining factor of if you're an Israelite or not. So it doesn't matter about your skin color. It doesn't matter about your texture of your hair. It doesn't matter about those things. All that really matters is if you're from the seed line that goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it says, to express his love towards Caesar, Leonardo painted many pictures of him. Caesar's father, Rodrigo Borgia, who later became Pope Alexander VI under the authority of the Catholic Church elite, had his son picture put up as Jesus Christ in the Western world. Caesar had sex with his own sister, Lucretia, and he killed his brother Giovanni in 1497. And is the man whom the Catholic Church gave their consent to allow his picture to be put up and portrayed as Jesus Christ to deceive the whole world to think Yahushua or Christ was European. You know, I'm so used to saying Yahushua when I see Christ, or Mashiach when I see Christ, or Yahushua when I see Jesus. So See, what most people don't know is there was a competition during the time called the Renaissance period between Leonardo da Vinci and the well-known Michelangelo. The competition was to see who could impress the king by making a new image of the king's son that would deceive the world, in which Leonardo da Vinci won the competition, right? So you can go into a little more history of that if you want to learn about it. I think it was a TV show called the Borgias, right? Like a damn near mob family, you know. So you can go into history and figure these things out. But the image we see right now is an image of a homosexual son of a pope. Right? So that's crazy. We understand that the scriptures that depict Yahushua as being a bronze-skinned, so-called black man. Right? So it's important to understand that. You understand your people, or so-called black, or your people, or the Israelites look like your people. You start, putting the pieces together. Then you understand, oh, shoot. We are the chosen people of Israel. We are the bloodline descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right. So let's go into a few precepts. This is Wisdom of Solomon 14 and 15. For your father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he hath made an image of his child soon taken away, now honored him as a god, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. And this is really just going into how you can make an image of a person, and next thing you know, that image, especially if you have some type of authority, you make an image of something, and through generations, generation after generation, eventually that person can be worshipped as a god. And that's what happened in the Caesar Borgia picture, as Yahushua, who they call Jesus. It changed everybody's mind to believe that was the actual image of the son, right? And so that's what made our people more subservient to Esau Edom, seeing that the people that we worship, or the person that we worship, is a white man, right? But when you go into history, you figure out, and you just go into the scriptures. The scriptures break it down how the Israelites looked, how Yahushua looked, right? How the angels looked, and they all had burnished bronze skin, bronze, dark brown, light brown. But you also have some who are going to look like the other nations also, Says, for the father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he have made an image of his child soon taken away, now honor him as a god, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. And that's what happens in the Christian church. You see these images, these crosses of the so-called white man, and you pretty much are giving sacrifice to him. You got him around your neck as an idol, right? There's a whole white man you got around your neck, man. A homosexual white man that you got around your neck. That should really shake people up to understand that. Like, damn, I'm really worshiping a homosexual white man that had sex with his sister. And they had come on, man. Killed his brother. You don't want to have that type of stuff around your neck. You don't want to have those idols. That's why our people are so fucked up. They're destroyed for a lack of knowledge. They don't know what the hell is going on. They don't go into history. They don't really actually look things up. They don't study to show themselves approved, and they wonder why they're still deceived and walking around in great darkness. Right? Ultimately, because the Lord doesn't really want them to get it. So you got 2/3 of our people who won't get it. They're not going to understand it. Right? But they can't say the truth wasn't there. Job 9 and 24. The earth is given to the hands of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. It is not, if not, where and who is he? Right? So it says the earth is given to the hands of the wicked. And this is Esau, Edom world right now. It says Esau is the end of the world, but Jacob is the beginning of that followeth. Roughly paraphrasing. So we understand that Esau, Edom, what he's do, cover up the faces of the judges. That's what he's been doing. It's how we can identify him as the wicked. This is one of the ways you can identify Esau as the wicked, is because he's the one who covered up the faces of the judges, right, during the Renaissance period, called iconoclasm, where they destroyed the images of the depiction of the true Israelites, right, and many other people, and they falsified their images as those people, right, as the Israelites, as the angels, as every important person. They tried to whitewash it, right? So That's why we think that That's why we think King James was a white man. That's why we think like these composers of the Renaissance period were white. Like, these people were black, man. I forgot that one of the composers they always talk about that was really a black person. I can't think about it right now. It was on the tip of my tongue, but I forgot his name. But yeah, a lot of these composers, great composers of the time of the Renaissance, were black people, man. Right? Let's go to First Maccabees. What's First Maccabees? I think it's First Maccabees. I think it's like, let's be like 43. Let me see. It's like I'm trying to figure out where the scripture's at. Yep, it's First Maccabees 3:48. And laid open the book of the law wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. And that also goes I also can go back to Serapis Christus also, right? Because the heathen, the Greeks, they made a image, right? I think it was one of the Ptolemies, right? He made an image or made a god that looked like Caesar Borgia. So this was at a time before Caesar Borgia image got put up as Yahweh Shai, or who they call Jesus Christ, right? So Serapis Christus, and this is going back into the making of these idols. They make these idols. These idols then get worshipped, and people make sacrifices to it. I believe they called the people who followed Serapis Christus. I believe they called them Christians. Christian is a Greek word, comes from the word Christos, right? So hey, this is what the heathens do. That's what Esau does. He goes around, he falsifies images, he falsifies nationalities, he falsifies all these things, right? He's a oppressor man, even a man in his heritage. Right? So hey, that's what Esau does, man. And it goes around the world and just conquers people, flips everything upside down because his spirit is not upright in him. Right? So he's there to rob, steal, destroy. He's there to lie and deceive. That's what Esau's here for. The deception, the greatest deceptions that have been known to man is from Esau, Edom, man. So it says, let me read this again. First Maccabees 3:48. And laid open the book of the law wherein the heathen has sought to paint the likeness of their images, right? So we understand that's what the heathen do, right? They say the victors write history. The people who are the victors, they're going to write the history. They're going to have these different accounts that are false, right? What is it? Christopher Columbus, he discovered America. Right? He discovered America, but America already had the Northern Kingdom over here. So what did you discover? You see the words that he uses is just all deception. They be like, no, you didn't discover anything. It was already here. It was already people living here. You didn't discover shit. You conquered them. You pillaged them. That's what you did. You killed these people. You didn't discover shit. But this is the words. Esau Edom is very, very good in deception. And he's gotten I believe he's gotten the last level of deception with his technology. I think that's the last level of deception. I think that's his pseudo miracles. Now that's like the Lord dropped off the package. Lord dropped off the package like, this is the last level that you're gonna get, and then I'm gonna take you down. I'm gonna give you the technology, right? Because we understand everything is of the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shai. Though they might go through Satan to get certain information, it's all within the confines of what the Lord is going to give Esau before he takes him down. So he's not going to get shit that the Lord is not already familiar with. You know what I'm saying? Like everything that Esau is using, the Most High is already knowing. Like, yeah, that's the level that's going to get. It's a certain level of wickedness that the Esau has to hit before the Lord comes down. That's why I said in even when you go into Genesis, the iniquity of the Amorites haven't came in, meaning that land of Canaan would not be given to Israel until the fullness of the Amorites were fulfilled. Then once the fullness hits, that's when the Lord's going to thrust the people out the land, and then the Israelites are going to come in. Same thing in these times. Esau Edom has to hit his highest level of wickedness before the Lord can say, okay, that's where it's at. Now I'm about to come. The Lord brings his son. They fuck shit up. They set up the kingdom of heaven on earth. That's it. But this technology, it's the highest level of the deception. We already seen the deception, how good they was at deception with the TVs and shit, the radio. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing this shit? You know what I'm saying? Which you probably, Jack was probably involved in all these things also. But just like the level of deception that they can use with the TV, they can literally make shit look real. That's a form of deception. That now they're editing stuff, they got AI, all this stuff. Now it's gonna be impossible to tell if something's real unless the spirit is on you. If the spirit is on you, you're gonna be able to tell when something's not right. All right, so let's go to let's go to Revelations 1. Revelations 1, I'm going to start at 13. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and a girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hair were white like wool, right? So his head and his hairs, right? The color of his hair and the texture of his hair was white and woolly. It says, and as white as snow. So he had white hair. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. Right? We understand the color brass is brown. Right? You have light brown, you have darker brown, but more like a wooden color. As if they burned in a furnace. So it was a darker brown. It was a dark-skinned brown man in a furnace, and his voice was as the sound of many waters. Right? So this right here is describing a black man with white woolly hair. Right, or a brown man, a dark brown man with white woolly hair. They're like, Jesus wasn't black. Like, he wasn't black because they're playing with words. And he's not black. Yeah, he wasn't black. He was brown. Aren't we brown? Aren't we the color of wood? Aren't we the color of copper or the color of bronze? Aren't we those colors? Like, but he wasn't black. Well, nobody's really black on the earth. You have some Africans that damn near purple, but it's still like it still comes from, like, a lot of it comes from a brown or a dark brown or color. It's still like a brown hue. Right? So yeah, we're not black. We're Israelites, man. We're the Israelites. Read this again. His head and his hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were a flame of fire, and his feet were like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice was the sound of many waters. Right? So that's one depiction of Yahushua, and it's showing him as a so-called black man with woolly hair. Let's go in Daniel, because Daniel describes the same thing in the Old Testament. This is Daniel 10. I'm going to start at 5. Then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with the fine gold of Uphaz. His body his body also was likened to a beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms, his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of the words like the voice of a multitude. Right? So it was in color of polished brass. Right, so we understand brass is that brown color, right? So he had a brass or a brown skin tone, right? And this is Yahushua being seen, right? So I was about to show a couple scriptures. You have a lot of scriptures that show the Israelites as being black. You have Job 30:30. My skin was black upon me. You have Jeremiah 14:2. Judah mourning, the gates thereof languished. They were black unto the ground. Right? You have Wisdom of Solomon. I think it was Songs of Solomon 1:5. It says, I am black and comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem. Right? You even got the angels being described in Ezekiel 1:7 as having burnished brass skin or tone to them. So this shows you right here that the so-called Messiah, right, Hamashiach, Yahushai, he was a so-called black man. He would be an African American in today's time. He would be an African American in today's time, right? Which, we know these Edomites, they hate it. They hate it, and they try to use every excuse not to have to deal with it. We don't care what skin color he was. We don't care what, what I'm saying? They do care. That's why they don't want him to be black. They don't want him to be black. They don't want, because they ultimately understand they got to pay for what the hell they done to the chosen people of Israel. That's why they don't want him to be black. They just know it. In their mind, they know it. If this guy was black the whole time, a black man, if who we looked up to, was a real black man, and we did that with people, there's something gonna happen to y'all, man. Y'all know, it might be over for us. So they don't want to put that in their mind, so they kind of avoid it, thinking about stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to go over a few scriptures. Lord willing, lesson was edifying. When I give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Until next time, Lord willingly, Shalom.